Arsenal handed double transfer boost after UEFA fined Premier League rivals. Arsenal have been given encouragement in their hopes of deals for Morgan Rogers and Bruno Guimaraes after UEFA's latest sanctions. Arsenal are interested in players from both Aston Villa and Newcastle United this summer transfer window, but both clubs have been notoriously shrewd negotiators, demanding massive fees for their best stars, with Jack Grealish and Alexander Isak commanding £3 million figures from Manchester City and Liverpool, respectively. Manchester City's move for Elliot Anderson of Nottingham Forest has totalled £116 million, and the deal has caused a knock-on effect for the rest of the market. It has become a reference point, and recently Tottenham Hotspur's £85 million agreement to sign relegated West Ham midfielder Matheus Fernandes has only furthered that for Arsenal. UEFA announced on Tuesday that both clubs had breached their squad cost ratio (SCR) and would be sanctioned. Aston Villa were fined £19.4 million, with £12.9 million of that suspended, dependent on whether Unai Emery's side decreased their SCR in 2026. Newcastle United, meanwhile, Football.London understands, were expecting a sanction and reached a settlement with UEFA, meaning the club must pay a fine of £8.6 million. £6 million has been suspended for 3 years, dependent on whether they comply in future. In all cases, any breaches naturally further the restrictions on their SCR for the following season. Newcastle are not in Europe next season, but Villa qualified for the Champions League, meaning they're working to the stricter UEFA SCR, whereas Newcastle will abide by the Premier League's own new SCR rules, which are less strict 85% than UEFA 70%. Arsenal will be very aware of both clubs, Villa's in particular, need to comply with the rules, which will impact negotiations for targets. Morgan Rogers has been mooted to have a valuation way above £100 million, but recent information could see that drop. With Bruno Guimaraes, while Newcastle remain adamant the player is not for sale, there is belief from Arsenal's perspective that a deal could be done for around £65 million. Villa among for Premier League clubs fined by UEFA. Aston Villa have been fined €22.5 million £19.4 million by UEFA for a significant breach of its squad cost rule for 2025. The Villains will also face a restriction on the registration of new players on their squad list for the Champions League next season. A large part of the fine minus €15 million £12.9 million is suspended, depending on the club continuing to significantly decrease their squad cost ratio to 2026. In effect, this is a rollover of a suspended punishment handed to the club last summer. In July 2025, Villa were fined €11 million £9.5 million, with a further €15 million £12.9 million conditional on compliance in a 3-year period. 3 other Premier League clubs have also been given financial penalties for breaching the squad cost rule. Chelsea have been fined €3 million to £0.6 million, of which €2 million £1.7 million is suspended. Nottingham Forest must pay €2.5 million to £0.2 million, with Newcastle United to pay €3 million to £0.6 million. The Magpies have also reached a settlement for an overspend in relation to UEFA's football earnings threshold, which means the club must pay a further fine of €10 million £8.6 million. Of this, €7 million £6 million has been suspended for 3 years, pending future compliance. 3 of the clubs either sold infrastructure to directly linked companies or players to associated teams. This was previously admissible under Premier League rules. It will not be from next season, but not by UEFA regulations. Chelsea sold Mathis Amugu to Strasbourg for £12 million, while Aston Villa sold their women's team. Strasbourg, Chelsea's sister club within the Blue Cooperation, were fined €25 £21.5 million, with €12 £10.3 million suspended for reporting a squad cost ratio above 70%. Newcastle posted a £34.7 million profit after selling the leasehold to St James Park, an adjacent land to PZ Holdings Limited, a subsidiary company. Last summer, Chelsea were fined €31 £26.7 million for breaches of the financial sustainability regulations, with the threat of further punishments over the next 3 years, worth a potential €60 £51.7 million. Chelsea said in a statement that UEFA had recognised the improving trend in their spending, and that the 70% threshold was only narrowly exceeded. All 4 clubs were in Europe last season, and the fines show the difficulties of complying with different rules across the competitions. UEFA reduced the squad cost limit from 80% to 70% of a club's income last season, making it more challenging to comply. The Premier League has introduced its own variation of squad cost limits, which kicks in from Wednesday. While clubs in Europe will have to adhere to UEFA's 70%, the other 11 Premier League teams will be permitted to spend upwards of 85% of income on the playing staff and the manager.